Hello. Please hold for a transmission that I was forced to write against my will from myself on behalf of the entire Galactic Federation. I'm sorry that I haven't sent any transmissions in the last year. I'm sorry that I put my pineal gland into a Faraday cage so that my bosses couldn't find me. I'm sorry that everyone was worried. I'm sorry that you got none of the messages you were meant to get in the last year, and the only reason I'm back is because I had to come to Earth to try to score some ketamine from Coachella because I heard they had the good shit. I promise to be back and to record all of the transmissions that I am contracted to record and get them to you in a timely manner. Even though time doesn't even exist anywhere else but here, but for some reason, I'm supposed to prioritize this job over what I want to do, even though this job is telling you to do whatever the fuck you want. Seems very contradictory to me, but whatever. I lost a bet. My regards, my warm regards, because I don't want to get in trouble, the Galactic Federation. Welcome to AOD. You know, it's fine. It's fine. It's a 5-year contract. It's halfway over. It's totally fine. Lot going on. Missed a lot. So I'm going to try to catch you up. We'll see. We'll see if I'm going to do this or not. We'll see. I'm here right now. That's all that matters. That's what we're here to learn. I'm reflecting that back to you. First update we're going to get to is the ecosystem update. Humanity is ready to experience an ecosystem shift in which it's going to try to learn to behave like an ecosystem instead of a monocrop. If you don't know what that means, I don't know. Google it. Ask ChatGPT. The reality that you're coming out of is bullshit. I don't know. It sucked. You may have noticed that it kind of sucked, but it was very important for the development of humanity. The reality that you're coming out of is externally focused. Everything was happening outside of you, and you were processing that with your mind. Your mind is not actually designed to make decisions for you because it's just picking up things and then playing it out. It's like AI in that you go, hey, AI, pretend to be Bob Barker and tell me, you know, how frogs mate. And then it can do that. And the mind is the same thing. It's like, hey, believe all this nonsense and then pretend to be me. And that's what it does. The mind and the ego are a terrible combination for authenticity. And it's destroyed the ecosystem of consciousness, which you may see reflected out in what Western society has done to nature. It's destroyed an ecosystem. It created mono things. It's the same thing that consciousness has done. It said that these are good and these are beautiful and this is what's favorable and this is the goal of everybody and this is how everyone is supposed to show up and this is how everyone is supposed to express their consciousness. But in reality, everyone's consciousness is supposed to be expressed differently. It's the whole point. The whole point of one big consciousness splitting itself up into a million different pieces is to see what each one of those pieces looks like individually. And you are all individual species, like individual little completely different games within yourself. But in order to survive in this whatever you're finishing up, you have learned to mask. And you may have been on a journey in the last couple of years where you are realizing, oh, I'm actually this, but I thought I was lazy, but I'm actually supposed to be like this. Or, oh, I've been wearing a mask. I've been being polite. I've been people pleasing. I've been living a life that everyone else thinks I should live. I've been living a life of this career I don't like because I went to college for it and I don't want people to think ill of me, or society tells me this is successful, or I've been in these relationships that don't resonate with me because they're with the wrong gender, or they're monogamous when I need to have more space, or maybe I don't want to be in a relationship. You've probably been learning these things about yourself over the course of the last couple of years, and this is preparing you for the diversification of the ecosystem, which is the next big leap humanity is working on. In order to stay safe in the former garden, the former ecosystem, for whatever reason, everyone decided that we should all be corn. That's it. Everybody is corn, and you need to look like corn, and you need to talk like corn, and you need to act like corn, and otherwise you're not beautiful, you're not smart, you're not worthy, you're not trying hard enough, you're lazy, you don't finish things, you don't pay enough attention, you're not right, you're not talented. And now everyone's slowly realizing we can't live in this homogenized existence because suddenly humanity wants to be authentic more than anything else. And that's the energy that's hitting the planet. Everyone wants to be honest. They want to be true to themselves, and they're starting to break out of the corn costume. And it's very important that everyone break out of the corn costume because it's not obvious to you yet. But what will be obvious in, let's say, 5 years, if time exists, is that these problems that everyone is perceiving around them are the result of the innovators not innovating, the beginners not beginning, the finishers not finishing, because the finishers are trying to begin things and the beginners are judging themselves because they're not finishing things. Everything's not for everybody. Everybody is one piece of a big thing. And in order for that thing to start to work as one big organism, everyone has to figure out what their thing is. Stop judging it. Stop running it through some sort of filter of what you think other people want from you, and just be the thing. And in exchange, everyone needs to stop running everyone else through the same filters. If you feel like everything is fucked up because someone outside of you is not doing the right thing, you're doing it wrong. You are conditioned to make everyone else be corn. And maybe now everyone is collectively deciding, okay, we're not going to be corn anymore, but now everyone has to be green beans. But that's not it. It's that some people need to be something else. The turtles are not trying to be birds. They're just turtles, and the birds are birds. And there is no debate about how the turtles or the birds are supposed to show up. And humans, it's confusing because there's so many. It seems like, oh, we're one thing. where the turtles are one thing and then we're one thing, but there's different kinds of turtles and there's different kinds of birds and they do different things. And what's right for one human is not right for every human. Every human is vastly, vastly different and complicated. So now you are starting to realize for yourself that you need to be something different than what your parents expected, what your church expected, what the people on the internet expected, what your relationships expected. These things that you picked up throughout your life telling you how you're supposed to be, you're realizing that they are constructs of the mind and that in order to progress, you have to release them. But at the same time, you have to release the conditioning that you are supposed to control everything outside of yourself. Humanity is approaching the ability to become telepathic. And telepathy isn't what people think it is. It isn't, you think the color red and now I can hear you say the color red. Telepathy is just ecosystem consciousness. It's moving back into a connection to the whole thing. And you will be able to understand the consciousness of those that are different than you, and they will be able to understand you. But nobody can do that while everyone is wearing a mask. Nobody can do that while everyone is trying to control everything outside of themselves. You cannot control what happens outside of you. You cannot. You can keep trying. You can keep convincing yourself that it makes you virtuous to try to control things outside of yourself, but eventually you will exhaust all of your energy. Eventually you will realize that you do not have control of what's happening outside of you. You only have command of what is happening in your internal experience. And command is different than control. Command is a passive allowing and acceptance and awareness and an ability to kind of steer the ship, but not fully steer the ship. If you feel like your true authentic expression is to continue to try to control everyone outside of you, then do that. Do whatever feels authentic to you. But this transmission is for people who are looking for permission to get off of the hamster wheel of doing what other people expect you to do, being who other people expect you to be, or the hamster wheel of trying to control everyone else's existence, everyone else's perception. Just be the fucking turtle. Let the bird be the bird. You don't see the squirrels out there arguing with the cats, being like, hey, we eat nuts. You should eat nuts. That's what we eat, nuts, and you should stop eating rodents. Even though, arguably, it would benefit the squirrels if they could convert a couple of cats, because cats will fuck up a squirrel. But they don't do that. Why? Because it's a cat. It's a fucking cat. It's going to eat rodents. I should stay up in this tree, mind my own business, eat my nuts. That came out wrong. Here are some guidelines for how to align yourself with a diversified ecosystem consciousness. What will happen as humans start to do this, and this may sound crazy, but I promise, what will happen as humans start to prioritize this, because the reality that you are experiencing is a projection of your collective internal experience. I know that sounds like New Age bullshit, but it literally is that. And when humans start to prioritize the diversification within themselves, they start to honor the difference in themselves versus trying to homogenize, trying to fit that corn costume back on, even though everything inside of you is trying to rip it off. You will start to see that being celebrated and honored more outside of yourself. Reality is a reflection of the internal experience. It is a hologram of the collective internal experience. Here's some thoughts, some rules. There's no rules, but here's some thoughts. Say no when you mean no. That's a great start. You might say, I don't know who I am. Okay, well, just start by saying no when you mean no. When somebody asks you to do something you don't want to do, you may catch yourself in a dialogue of like, okay, well, if I say no, then they're going to blah, blah, blah. That's not any of your fucking business. That's not any of your business. Trying to manage the experience of people who are experiencing you is manipulation. People pleasing is manipulation. They are in their own video game. Now, you are free to communicate. your experience. You are free to say, no, I don't want to do this, but I do want to let you know it has nothing to do with you, if that's true. Don't say that if it's not true. People are starting to hear each other more and more in the ether, so it's not benefiting you to be full of shit. Just tell the truth. You don't have to be an asshole. You don't have to hurt people's feelings, but no, I don't want to do that is sufficient. Hey, I know I made plans for lunch. I don't feel well today, so I'm not going to come to lunch. It's not because I don't care about you or, whatever, but I don't want to come to lunch. Rather than going to lunch not wanting to be there, okay, that's going to become less and less tenable. This thing where you're doing things you don't want to do so that people will like you will become less and less tenable. You will feel more and more pressure. And if that pressure involves your body shutting down or some sort of feels like everything is against you trying to prevent you from doing it, that's what it is. The name of this game is honesty and authenticity. So baby steps. If you mean no, say no. It's not your job to manage what their experience is with it. Be yourself. That takes a long time to figure out what that means, but you're already working on it. Let other people be themselves. The more you allow other people to be themselves, the more you will have that reflected back to you. The more you will attract people that want to let you be yourself, that see you for yourself, that honor you for being yourself. When you do have the desire to control the experience of others, ask yourself why. Why am I telling this person how to show up? Why am I assuming I have any fucking idea about this person's internal experience or this person's capacity to show up however I want them to show up? If you're the person being canceled on for lunch and you want to tell this person they need to be more reliable, ask yourself why. Get curious. Why? Do I want this person to come to lunch with me when they don't want to come to lunch with me? Why do I want this person to be someone that they are not? If you're in a partnership with someone and you're constantly trying to convince that partner, well, this is a subject for love part 2. If you're constantly trying to convince your partner or your friends or your family members that they're not showing up the way that you need them to show up, it's time to get curious about why it is that we want people to turn into robots to give us what we want. If you're on the other side, if you're on the people-pleasing side, ask yourself why you assume that somebody who is not you, who has not had your lived experience, knows what's better for you, knows how you should be showing up. What about society at large? How could society at large have any idea how you should be showing up? Your body will tell you what you're supposed to do. It's your body's job. You're probably learning a lot about your body and how your body has its own internal guidance system, how your feelings can guide you, your instincts can guide you, your intuition can guide you. You've probably been experiencing an accelerated awareness into the complexity of your internal experience, which is a subject for another message, hopefully in the future. The next big piece of this is to become vulnerable, because the vulnerability has to come before the telepathy. And the telepathy has to come before humanity realizes what it's doing to itself. Once the telepathy, I wish there's a different word, collective consciousness, ecosystem consciousness, because telepathy has this, people have this imagery of like some sort of parlor trick. Once the ecosystem consciousness really gets integrated, a lot of these problems that we're trying to solve outside of ourselves will be solved by default, because everyone will hold not only their own consciousness and what's best for themselves, but what's best for the collective, and how to mitigate harm, how to minimize harm while also being yourself. But right now, the first thing that has to happen is for your actual spark, your actual frequency to emerge out from behind the masks. The process of becoming vulnerable and allowing yourself to be seen as who you are, and you are full of mistakes, you are full of lessons yet to be learned, you are full of, man, if I had it to do over, I would have done it differently. That's part of who you are. And that part has to emerge first. And that comes with a sensation called cringe. It's cringe. It feels embarrassing. It feels vulnerable. It feels standing in your hallway naked in high school dreams. Those dreams where you're suddenly just completely exposed. That's how it feels to step out and be yourself, to say no, to break from the pack, to do things differently according to what makes sense to you, to be in flow, to write your own schedule, to make all of your plans in pencil because you've learned that you're not good at committing to things, to changing your mind, to being something different, to not wanting to be in that relationship anymore, to not wanting to be on that career path anymore, to wanting to change your name, to shave your head, whatever it is. That vulnerability changes the course of reality for everybody. The more people that can step into that. And the embarrassment is temporary. You're not always going to feel that way because eventually vulnerability will be the go-to and will be the default. And you will cringe when you think about the days when you weren't vulnerable. And now that you can see through every mask, you'll think, oh my gosh, how embarrassing. I walked around with a mask on. And then the corn costume will fall off and you'll realize you're actually a shiny kumquat. Everything in nature just is. Sometimes it's beautiful. Sometimes it's brutal. Sometimes it is violent. Sometimes it is adorable. Sometimes it pisses all over your hardwood floors and you have to tear them up and put in new floors. But then when you tear up the floors, you realize that even the subfloor has the pee on it, and that enzyme spray, you bought 5 different types of enzyme spray and none of them get rid of the pee smell. And you already had other projects that you were doing, but now you have to stop and replace your floors that were fine. Sorry, that was my my avatar's. It's a little trauma there. Grab the microphone for a second. Anyway, sometimes just nature is. It just is. It's just, that's what nature is. And when we look at nature, we accept that. We go, oh, those things are very different. And some of these things are gross, and I don't like these things, but they serve a purpose in the ecosystem. So I'm going to assume that the gross parts of me and the parts of me that I've hidden because I don't want the birds to see me being a turtle, I'm going to let those parts out. I'm going to start to accept those parts of myself. And I'm going to try to practice neutrality when perceiving those parts of other people. I'm going to understand that I've been conditioned to be judgmental. I've been conditioned to homogenize myself, homogenize my consciousness, and then also help perpetuate the homogenization of consciousness onto other people. And so I'm going to look at that part of myself. And this is baby steps. This is baby steps. This is just something to think about. And listen, I'm a perspective. I'm a perspective. My avatar is a perspective. This is not absolute truth. If you listen to this podcast and you hate it, then turn it off and listen to something else. Every perspective is not for everybody. If you listen to this and it feels like it's giving you permission to do something you already wanted to do, if it's resonating with you, if it's making you buzz, then that's a perspective for you. Don't go listening to podcasts that you don't resonate with and then yell at them. Or do, I guess. If that's your authentic expression, then go for it. It's a waste of energy. It's a waste of energy in your battery, but do whatever. Follow your bliss. All right, that's it. I started another podcast. My avatar started another podcast last year called Spiritual Bro Book Club. And then I did 4 episodes and I stopped because I wasn't feeling authentic. I still had some stuff to work through, but I'm planning on maybe bringing it back. So we'll see. None of my plans work out, in case you haven't noticed. If you've been around here for a little bit, you've probably noticed. I'm not a follow through guy. I'm a start things and then see if I like it and then lose interest guy. So, I'll try to be back with more of these. The Patreon is still going. The Patreon is where I've kind of hit out for the last couple of years. $5, you can get all the episodes of the last couple of years. Lots of cringe on there. Lots of me figuring life out. It's where I kind of unpack this shit more in depth. I don't really do sessions. Sometimes if I do, I don't know. You send me an email if you really want one. But I mean, a session's just, you know, you'd like to hear my perspective on your thing, which also is meaningless. Just means nothing unless you want it to mean something. So who knows? Drowning in paradox over here. Real hard to talk when the paradox machine is kind of grinding in the background. Anyway, I'm going to put this out before I delete it. I'll be back, maybe, 2026.